Hi, my name is Alison Flynn, and I'm Associate Professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biomolecular Sciences at the University of Ottawa in Ottawa, Canada. So, speaking about how higher education institutions changed in my country during the pandemic, in mid-March, universities in Canada, one by one, started to announce that they were shutting down, stopping research, and transitioning courses to a remote format. And to us, remote courses meant the courses taught at a distance and more or less online, but in an emergency, get it done quickly kind of format, rather than a carefully designed and executed online course that would take time, a team of experts, and resources to craft. So from a more personal perspective, during the pandemic, our movements have been generally unrestricted. We've been asked to stay at home and within our own families, but we've been able to go out for essentials, food, medication, including being outdoors to exercise. So at this time, the restrictions are slowly being lifted in Canada, with research restarting at reduced capacity, businesses slowly reopening, although we are anticipating additional waves of the pandemic. From a higher education perspective, we'll be looking at mostly remote courses for the next semesters, our summer and fall, with some in-person courses respecting social distancing requirements. So in terms of challenges that we're facing from that higher education perspective, I'm seeing four main categories of challenges. So first, how might we ensure educational equity in the remote teaching environment? Students and professors are not optimally equipped to learn and teach in this format. Many don't have the technologies or skills to work online. For example, some may not have a printer or a computer or good Wi-Fi or any Wi-Fi at home. So we need to consider these things as we design our learning environment and offer options for accessing and working within the course. Many were already dealing with motor, hearing, vision, and cognitive challenges in their teaching and learning. So we also need to make sure we keep designing for accessibility using models such as the Universal Design for Learning. In research, there's much talk about the need for open science, and the same is true for education. We need greater and higher quality open education resources. These open education resources are free, but they're more than that. They're adaptable so that educators in various contexts can use them. The open education resources, for example, that I might create here can be adapted by somebody in a different country, in Australia, or in different parts of Africa, for example. They come in different formats, such as digital and print. They're immediately accessible so that learners can have the materials they need in hand from the very first day of class. The next thing I would say we need to really consider is proficiency. As we're all suddenly being thrown into this model of learning and teaching, we need to remember that while we may be comfortable being online, that relatively few of us are proficient in learning and teaching online. So most of us have not done this before, and suddenly we're converting to this teaching method at a rate that we've never before seen. And so how might we design our courses in a way that we're being kind to ourselves and our own limitations, what we can do in this short period of time? And how might we also support learners who are also learning in this online and remote environment for the first time? The next thing that I think we need to really consider is health. As we're trying to keep our higher institutions running, we need to remember that we're working in a pandemic. And so some students may be ill or caring for ill family members, either directly related to COVID-19 or because they're not getting the medical treatment they need due to pandemic-induced medical restrictions in their care. Some may be struggling caring for kids while trying to learn. Others may be working at the family business while they're also trying to do school. So lots of different challenges in that way that people are facing. The pandemic has changed, of course, all of our everyday lives. For some, it's been the ideal change, getting to work at home, uninterrupted, focusing full day long. But for others, it's been total chaos with kids running through all the time and trying to manage being all of a sudden a teacher for me, for my own kids, as well as being an educator in higher education and a researcher. So for some, it's been total chaos. As I understand also from our psychologists, many are living through this as a traumatic experience. many people who are alone, isolated, and having been pulled out of one of the communities, the higher education community that is really important part of their and our identities. So as we consider then education, how might we construct our courses with kindness and with community building as primary considerations? So finally, there's a question of when and how people will come back to our campuses. In the fall, because many courses will be given remotely, such as the theory and lecture courses in my own Faculty of Science. Some courses, such as laboratories, will be given in the fall partially in person, partially remotely, while respecting social distancing requirements. So the return to in-person studies presents many challenges, particularly to university administrators who need to be thinking about these different pieces. What happens if someone becomes ill and can't continue with their studies? How will people be returning from other cities, and when will they do that? What about international students who need to secure visas as well as figure out how they're going to move and where they're going to live when they come back? How will quarantine periods work? And how many moves and changes will that mean for students? What services will be available to those who do come back to campus? Normally our campuses run as these little mini cities with all sorts of services available. So there are going to be many challenges to address in the weeks and months to come. So my hope is that we'll use this time to improve our educational approaches in higher education. As in many countries around the world, professors are not trained as educators. We are hired for our expertise in research, and then we started to teach. And so this event is shaking up our system and stirring conversations about learning and teaching. One of the things that makes me really hopeful is seeing educators coming together to learn from each other at a rate that I've never seen before. And I hope that as we do that, we also bring students into those conversations and students into our decision-making tables. The students are living this educational system from a perspective that we simply don't have as educators. They know what it's like from their side and their position. And by having them at the table, by having them as part of our discussions, I think we can do a lot more to improve the educational system, the courses that we design. So I hope that we'll be better able to design our courses to best help students learn, that we do so in a way that's inclusive and equitable. We use open education resources. We open up new kinds of conversations in our courses, that will support students and each other in our efforts to become proficient as online learners and educators, and that will foster kindness and build community through our courses. So I hope that some of these ideas may be helpful to you. You'll also find these ideas more spelled out with some examples in an ebook that we created called Remote Teaching, meant to be a practical guide with tools, tips, and techniques, which naturally is an open education resource, so you can adapt it to your own context if you'd like to. So you can find that and other resources on my website or on Twitter. My website is flynnresearchgroup.com, and on Twitter it's Alison B. Flynn. Thank you.